like no more. Hey, be at the end of the blessing. I know they only give no time. I tell you, Satan, let go on. Me not want no more of your temptation. Say I'm the ritual with district. Me rather have ya come take over your space. I know that you're wicked and me know that you're wrong. So come back to hell and leave. This kind of la me wanna hustle more. Cause I know what's in store. Me don't wanna hustle no more. Cause Babylon, I don't wanna live it like no more. Me don't wanna hustle no more. Cause I know what's in store. Me don't wanna hustle no more. Cause Babylon, I don't wanna live it like no more. Maybe me get on there like no easy. Every morning, every find some money. Beat me me. Look up the key and look up Freddy. They coming up on this thing, the police chase after me. Hear this? Oh, praise.
Praise y'all on the Sabbath day. Today we will be discussing the breakdown of the nuclear family. And the nuclear family is broken captivity. A lot of people are living in fairyland. A lot of leaders are living in fairyland, not really knowing what's going on with the nuclear family. But I wanted to start in the book of Malachi to show what Elijah has to do. And in verse 5, we see here, look, I am sending you the prophet Elijah before the great and dreadful day of YAH arrives. His preachings will turn the hearts of the fathers to their children and the hearts of the children to their fathers. Otherwise, I will come and strike the land with a curse. Well, in this version, it says his preachings will do it. He's going to do it. But one thing about it is nobody's preaching today that I am seeing is coming close to Elijah's and coming close to bringing the fathers back to the children, advocating for the fathers to come back to the children like Elijah has to do. But let me look at the other version of this. Okay, the King James Version. Behold, I will send Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of YAH. And he will turn the hearts of the fathers to the children and the heart of the children to the fathers, lest I come and strike the earth with a curse. So he will do this. But I don't see teachers talking about this. But I want to continue because when we talk about the breakdown of the nuclear family, I want to show something very important on what's going on. And that's in the book of Exodus 22. And in the book of Exodus, and I'm going to put it in on here as well. Exodus chapter 22. We go down to verse 16. And it says, if a man entices a virgin who is not betrothed and lies with her, he shall surely pay the bride's price for her to be his wife. If her father utterly refuses to give her to him, he shall pay money according to the bride's price of virgins. What does this mean? If the father utterly refuses to give this man his wife, it's because the fathers were the ones to make that decision. It was not the woman. It was not the daughter. The daughter did not have say so in this matter. And in order to do it in the ways of YAH, in the law, but see, in captivity, they don't do it this way. But these are the relationships that lasted, the ones that worked. That man had to go to the father of that woman, and he had to approve the marriage. And if we go to Genesis 29, I want to reiterate this. In Genesis 29, if you go to verse 15, it says, and Laban said to Jacob, because thou art my brother, Shouldest thou therefore serve me for naught? Tell me, what shall thy wages be? And Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the elder was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah was tender-eyed, but Rachel was beautiful and well-favored. And Jacob loved Rachel and said, I will serve thee 7 years for Rachel, thy younger daughter. And Laban said, Is it better that I give her to thee, that I should give her to another man? Abode with me. And Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed unto him but a few days, for the love he had to her. And Jacob said to Laban, Give me my wife, for my days are fulfilled, that I may go in unto her. So, what is this saying? Jacob was saying, Give me my wife. You have to make that decision right now. Let me make a covenant with this woman. Let us sign on a dotted line. Let us sign. Let us make this covenant together. We can't do it until you give me permission as the father to do it. But when we attack fathers, as we do in this wicked land, then this can never take place. The way righteous unions were created, how the nuclear family is created. It's created by doing it the right way. And this is not only biblical, this is all around the world. As we know, all except, with the exception of any nation that is ruled by the Queen of England, anyone who has a prime minister around the world, they're not traditional, they're feminism and they're the Western. So if you're talking about Australia, if you're talking about Canada, anywhere with a prime minister, those places don't do traditionally, but Africa, we can go to the Arab countries, the Chinese countries, the Indian. I mean, we can go all around the world. And that man, that father, had a decision-making ability on who married his daughter. The women did not have the decision-making abilities on their own. The women couldn't turn around and say, forget what my father said, I'm going to marry you anyway. Or the man can't sneak around to the woman and say, forget what your father said, let's run away. Let's do that. That was not what was done. But I want to continue showing the importance of the father and the husband. Because, and I'm going to go to Numbers 30. Because when you talk about the nuclear family, what is destroyed? And you want to mention something, brother?
Yeah, I got a question. You talk about the nuclear family. I want you to break that down a little bit more, like what you mean. What's the meaning behind, destruction of the nuclear family? Go a little bit more into that before we get to that next part.
Okay, so when we talk about the destruction of the nuclear family, we talk about the family getting away from the laws of the Almighty, getting away from righteousness. And what I mean by that is the way things are done. According to like I was just mentioning, according to the commandments, that a man's supposed to go to a woman's father, but we don't do that anymore because there is no fathers in the house. And in fact, the state and the government have made laws on the books to incentivize divorce called no fault divorce. We have a 70% rate, and I want to show this real quick. Who initiates divorce? However, what does it say? Research since 1940s have revealed that among heterosexual couples, women are more responsible for initiating divorce than men. That the divorced women are typically happier ending their marriages. Okay. But what I mean is, when we talk about the destruction of the nuclear family, in fact, let me go to a scripture to explain what I mean. And I'm going to go to the book of Isaiah. Isaiah 3. And in Isaiah 3, start at verse 12. As for my people, children of the oppressors, and women rule over them. O my people, those who lead thee cause thee to err and destroy the ways of my path. So what we're talking about is a community that's ran by the women. This is the destruction of the nuclear family. The nuclear family meaning man, woman, and child, and children. This is on the attack. This is the number one reason for our disunity. Because first we need the nuclear family before we can have in a community. We have to have the fathers together. The fathers, all the fathers in the neighborhood come together. All the heads of households, all the mothers come together. But we have to have that type of unity. We have all disunity. So when we talk about the breakdown of the nuclear family, we're talking about the devaluing of fatherhood to the point where Elijah has to come back. And we remember who Elijah was fighting against. Jezebel. Jezebel was a Phoenician. And her gods that she made him serve also killed their babies and sacrificed babies, just like abortionists, just like the Jezebel spirit that was fighting against the same Elijah that has to come back and return the hearts of the fathers to the children and the hearts of the children to their fathers. When we talk about the nuclear family, we talk about what kind of spirit the people have today. They have a Jezebel spirit. And we can get more deep into Jezebel, but I want to get on subject in regards to the importance of the man and the father in the household. And I want to go to Numbers chapter 30. And Numbers chapter 30, and I'm going to also bring it on here. 30. And what does it read? And Moses spake unto the heads of the tribes concerning the children of Israel, saying, this is the thing which Yahweh have commanded. If a man vow a vow unto Yah, or swear an oath to bind his soul with a bond, he shall not break his word. He shall do according to all that proceedeth out of his mouth. If a woman also vow a vow unto Yahweh, and bind herself by a bond, being in her father's house in her youth, and her father hear her vow, and her bond wherewith she hath bound her soul, and her father shall hold his peace at her, then all her vows shall stand, and every bond wherewith she hath bound her soul shall stand. But if her father disallow her on the day that he heareth, not any of her vows or of her bonds wherewith she hath bound her soul shall stand, and Yah shall forgive her, because her father disallowed her. And if she had at all a husband when she vowed, or uttered aught out of her lips, wherewith she bound her soul, and her husband heard it, and held his peace at her in the day he heard it, then her vows shall stand, and her bond wherewith she bound her soul shall stand. But if her husband disallow her on the day that he heard it, then he shall make her vow which she vowed, and that which she uttered with her lips, wherewith she bound her soul, of none effect, and Yahweh will forgive her. But every vow of a widow and of her that is divorced, wherewith they have bound their soul, shall stand against her. And if she vowed in her husband's house, or bound her soul by a bond with an oath, and her husband heard it and held his peace at her and disallowed her not, then all her vows shall stand, and every bond with which she bound her soul shall stand. But if her husband have utterly made them void on the day he heard them, then whatsoever proceedeth out of her lips concerning her vows or concerning the bond of her soul shall not stand. Her husband have made them void, and Yahweh shall forgive her. Every vow and every bonding oath to evict the soul, her husband may establish it, or her husband may make it void. But if her husband altogether hold his peace at her from day to day, then he established all her vows, or all her bonds, which are upon her. He confirmeth them, because he held his peace at her in the day that he heard them. But if he shall anyways make them void after that he heard them, then he shall bear her iniquity. These are the statutes which Yah commanded Moses between a man and his wife, between the father and his daughter, being yet in her youth in her father's house. Now, this is a very, very, very important thing, because when we hear women say, I don't need a man for nothing, Yahweh himself said you needed a man. You needed a man to disallow your vows. You don't want that authority figure, that man telling you what you are or not to do. But Yahweh himself said that if a woman make a vow, whether she be a wife of a husband or his daughter, that if he thinks that the thing that came out of their mouth is not something they should hold on to, that this woman has made a bad decision, then that father has a right to disallow what's going on in that wife's in that daughter's life. And a husband has the right to disallow any vow or anything she says she's going to do all the time, that she's going to, whatever vow that may be. That man is that authority to say that he disallows it. Do not punish her. She didn't know what she was saying. The Almighty won't even hold it against her, because that husband saved her from something she should not most likely be vowing. But nowadays, women don't want the authority of a father, or 50-50, or what they initiate divorce 70% of the time, against that husband that's supposed to be making those decisions, even against her will. Do you not think that when it says that that woman, that wife vowed a vow to the Almighty, that was her mind was made up, that she knew what she was doing when she made a vow to the Creator? But even so, with her being so determined, that husband can say no, and she's supposed to be okay with that authority according to the commandments. But I want to go to Malachi chapter 1. What do you think about that?
That's profound. Is you can hit that from so many different aspects. The whole statement that I don't need a man, or what I need a man for, but the whole purpose of woman being created, when you go back to Genesis, according to the Holy Scriptures, was to be a helpmate to the man. Was to be a helpmate to the man. Your whole purpose and design was to help and assist the man in reproduction. And you can't even reproduce without the man. The woman becomes a part of the man's responsibility. You know?
Exactly.
It becomes a dependent. And I'm not going to compare a woman to a child. but they both dependents. Imagine a child saying, I don't need parents. What I need parents for? Imagine us, the Most High is our Father. Imagine us saying, what we need the Most High for? All this is an order, and that verse does
Exactly.
nothing but to establish that order in terms of giving that man that authority. Even when you go to what's that down to Genesis 3 where it says that man will govern and rule over that woman, you know?
Exactly.
And that's part of what that is going into. Sometimes it's nice to have somebody who's responsible for you, because now even if you do say something foolish, they got the mindset to say, you know what, that's not gonna work out because we got this going on, we got that going on. And so don't make that vow for doing this for a month because we got some things going on. They see things we
Exactly.
don't see, you know, no different than everything has an ordinance or a govern. There was 50 men, one man over 50 men, for different situations that occurred. And that goes back to just structure and order. So that statement alone to say, this is very ignorant. It's very ignorant, and that shows a big lack of understanding for one to say, they don't need a man. Because I don't know too many men that would, that would say some same thing about a woman. You know,
Not really.
and it's not that we can't function independently without each other, but even the scriptures say it's not good for man to be alone.
Yep. Threefold cord is hard to be broken, you know? And that's why I want to go to the book of Malachi right here, where it says, a son honors his father and a servant his master. If then I am a father, where is my honor? And if I'm a master, where's my reverence? Saith Yahweh of hosts. So Yahweh knows that you're supposed to honor your father. We know the Ten Commandments say to honor your father. But the whole fact of not needing a man is the fact that fatherhood has been so devalued that they don't know the benefits of a father, the benefits of a man. Remember, at the beginning, I was showing how that man had to go to that woman's father to get permission to marry her because her father was taking care of her. That's what fathers did. The fathers took care of her. The father and the mother built her up to become a wife. And she would leave the household of her father and go directly to her husband. She will always have a covering, but you don't have that covering without fathers, without male men authority. And this is the breakdown of the nuclear family, not having that honor for what a father is. And I'm going to go to Isaiah 45 real quick. And in Isaiah 45, verse 9, I just wanted to read it. I thought it was interesting. Woe to him that strive with his maker. Let the potsherd strive with the potsherds of the earth. Shall clay say to him who formed it, what are you making? Or shall your handiwork say, he has no hands? Woe to him who says to his father, what are you begetting? Or to a woman, what have you brought forth? So woe to him that says to his father, who have you birthed? What have you made? He was nothing but a deadbeat. He was nothing but a sperm donor. What? What are you begetting? But I thought it was interesting. But I wanted to go to Malachi 7 and 6 because this one's coinciding with one of the real reasons why people disrespect their parents and their fathers. And in verse 5, it says, do not trust in a friend. Do not put your confidence in a companion. Guard the doors of your mouth from her who lies in your bosom. For son dishonoreth the father. Daughter rises up against her mother. Daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies are men of his own household. But let's keep reading. But right here it says, therefore I will look to Yah. I will wait for the Elohim of my salvation. My Elohim will hear me. Now, there's only one person in the Bible who claimed to come to make you disrespect your father. And what spirit came to make you disrespect your father? You go to the book of Matthew, chapter 10, down to verse 34. It says, do not think that I come to bring peace on the earth. I did not come to bring peace but a sword. For I've come to set a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies will be those of his own household. He who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he who loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. You see what he's saying right here? He's saying that he came to do this. But what in the book of Micah he said, we know all these wicked people are following these false deities, and that's why they're doing this. But I will wait on Yah. So just like I'm going to wait on Yah, I'm not going to follow a man. I'm not going to worship a man anyway, but a man who said he come to do what is being done in our community today. It's no wonder that most of our people are Christians and they're dishonoring their father and their mother. And I want to go to the book of Esther to show how men, and it wasn't even men of Israel, it didn't even have to be men of Israel, would not allow a woman to disrespect her husband. When we talk about the nuclear family, I'm going to go to the book of Esther, chapter 1. I'm going to start at verse 5. And when these days were completed, the king made a feast lasting 7 days for all the people who were present in Shushan the citadel, and from great to small, in the court of the garden of the king's palace. There were white and blue linen curtains fastened with cords of fine linen, and purple on silver rods, and marble pillars, and the couches were of gold and silver, on a mosaic pavement of alabaster, turquoise, and white and black marble. And they served drinks in golden vessels, each vessel being different from the other, with royal wine in abundance, according to the generosity of the king. In accordance with the law, the drinking was not compulsory. For so the king had ordered all the officers of the household, and that they should do according to each man's pleasure. Queen Vashti also made a feast for the women in the royal palace, which belonged to King Assyrius. So this is Queen Vashti. And she was celebrating too in the king's house. On the 7th day, when the hearts of the king were merry with wine, he commanded 7 eunuchs who served in the presence of King Assyrius to bring King Vashti before the king, wearing her crown royal, in order to show her beauty to the people and the officials, for she was beautiful to behold. But Queen Vashti refused to come at the king's command, brought by his eunuchs. Therefore, the king was furious, and his anger burnt within him. So we see Queen Vashti refused to come at the king's command. Then the king said to the wise man who understood the times, verse 15, what shall we do to Queen Vashti according to law? Because she did not obey the command of the king of Assyria brought to her by the eunuchs. Oh man, women don't have to listen to their husband. Let's continue. And Memucan answered before the king and the princes, Queen Vashti has not only wronged the king, but also all the princes and all the people who are in all the provinces of King Assyrius. For the queen's behavior will become known to all women, so that they will despise their husbands in their eyes. When they report, King Assyrius commanded Queen Vashti to be brought before him, but she didn't come. This very day, the noble ladies of Persia and Media, this is not Israelites, but other nations won't even allow this. Of Persia and Media will say to all the king's officials and to that they have heard of the behavior of the queen. So the women are going to say that we heard what the queen did. Thus, there will be excessive contempt and wrath. So, this is somebody who was not an Israelite. The Persians worship all types. I don't even want to get into that. But what I will say is they had enough sense, just like any man, to know that when the queen disrespects the king, that type of, hierarchy where we can see the king himself being disrespected by his queen will disrupt the whole kingdom. And all the ladies will start looking at their husbands with contempt. That will spread evil. It reminds me of the commandment that said, do not prostitute thy daughter, lest thy land fall to whoredom and the land be filled with wickedness. Because that's somewhat what this servant of the king was saying. He said, if the woman sees you acting like this and doing these things, the whole land, all the women, the whole land, the whole nuclear family will collapse. And they did not want the nuclear family to collapse. Let's continue though. Verse 19. If it please the king, let a royal decree go out from him, and let it be recorded in the laws of the Persians and the Medes, so that it will not be altered, that Vashti shall come no more before King Assyrius, and let the king give her royal position to another who is better than she. So they saw her as a low life. They said, give it to somebody better than her. Because for her to show contempt to a king is destroying that unit, king, queen, princess, and on down, destroying that order. And we don't need an evil representative like this, because, and that's the problem with today. Now, all the people who are held in esteem are saying things, and it's sad that people hold these celebrities and things in esteem, are saying they don't need a man. They're independent. This right here is evil. That all the contempt for fathers, for men, for fatherhood, for male authority in the house. And I'm gonna continue. Verse 21. And the replay pleased the king and the princess, and the king did according to the word of Mukan. Then he sent letters to all the king's provinces, to each province in its own script, and to every people in their own language, that each man should be master in his house and speak the language of his own people. So that each man will be master in his house. But that right there is something evil, but it's only evil to evil women. And I want to go to Proverbs 31 and talk about the virtuous woman. Because this is an evil woman right here. And we got evil women out here that talk bad about the virtuous woman. And why do I mean that most of these women talk about the virtuous woman as a fairy tale? They say, I don't want to go back to the days of old. Those women were slaves. A housewife was a slave. A woman that stayed at home, and they have a twisted version of what a virtuous woman was. And that's one reason why the nuclear family is destroyed. If we go to Proverbs 31, it talks about a virtuous woman. And in Proverbs 31 and 10, it says, who can find a virtuous woman? Her price is far above rubies. Let me go to Proverbs 13 and 10 on here so everyone can see it. 31. Okay. And it says, who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies. The heart of her husband does safely trust in her, so that he shall have no need of spoil. You know what I hear women say? Oh, well, if you at a housewife, he gonna have a whole nother house on the other side of town. Let me get away from all what I hear, all the naysayers. The heart of, okay, right here, verse 12. She will do him good and not evil all the days of her life. She seek wool and flax and work willingly with her hands. She is like the merchant ships. She bringeth her food from afar. She rises also while it is yet night, and giveth meat to her household, and a portion to her maidens. She considereth a field and buyeth it. And with the fruit of her hand she planteth a vineyard. She girdeth her loins with strength, and strengtheneth her arms. She perceiveth that her merchandise is good. Her candle goeth not out by night. Now, what's going on here? Because most of the time I'm hearing that a housewife, she's oppressed. She don't have no money. She got to wait till the man gives her money. But the virtuous woman perceive her merchandise is good. Her candle go out not at night. She layeth her hand to the spindle, and her hands hold the distaff. She stretches out her hands to the poor. Yea, she reaches her hands to the needy. She is not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household clothed with scarlet. She maketh herself coverings of tapestry. Her clothing is silk and purple. Her husband is known in the gates when he sitteth among the elders of the land. She maketh fine linen and sells it, and deliver girdles to the merchant. So not only is, like verse 16, she considers a field and buys it herself. Oh, that woman's oppressed. A housewife, they're oppressed. They don't have no money. They just get beat on. But the virtuous woman was at home. She was a housewife. And she considered a field and buyed it with her money. And with the fruit of her hands, she planted for vineyards. So not only that, but she was intelligent. She knew that when she purchased that land, she used her hand to flip the land. But they say the housewife is evil. That's the reason. That's one of the main reasons for the breakdown in the nuclear family. Because they say, oh, I don't want a housewife. I want to go out and work. I got. But let's keep reading. She making fine linen and sells it. So she's selling stuff, buying stuff, delivering girdles to the merchant. Strength and honor are her clothing, and she shall rejoice in the time to come. She opened her mouth with wisdom, and her tongue is a law of kindness. She looketh well to the ways of her household, and eateth not the bread of idleness. But I really wanted to put the emphasis on the fact that she was not oppressed. What does it keep saying? Her children rise up and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her. So the virtuous woman husband praised her, not whatever woman y'all was taught that her husband come home, beat her. She got to stay in the house. She a house slave. The husband don't treat her right. All this stuff is to go against the nuclear family. These messed up ideas. And I wanted to go to the book of Jeremiah 3. And brother Ben
All right, look like he froze up there. Sure, he about to call back in a little bit.
And my bad, family. Had technical difficulties. But I'm back. Let me share the screen again.
Yeah, you was just leaving off at about to go to Jeremiah chapter 3.
All right. Now in Jeremiah 3, in verse 20, it says, "Surely as a wife treacherously departed from her husband, so have ye dealt treacherously with me, O house of Israel, saith Yahweh." Now, when we talk about the breakdown of the family, how does families break down? What is the main way of breaking down families? And I want to go to the book of Malachi because it said right here, in verse 20, "Surely as a wife treacherously departed from her husband," right? Now, let me go back. Who initiates divorce? Who initiates divorce? Okay, it says the women. However, research since the 1940s have revealed that among heterosexual couples, women are responsible for divorcing men. But what is it? Where's the 70%? It didn't throw in the 70 percentile. But the vast majority are initiated by the woman. But what does the Almighty say about this? We go to Malachi. And we're going to go to chapter 2. And I'm turning on my pages, but I'm going to go to verse 14. And what does it say? "Yet you say, for what reason? Because Yah has been witness between you and the wife of your youth, with whom you have dealt treacherously. Yet she is your companion and the wife of your youth, of your covenant. But he did not make them one, having the remnant of the spirit. And why one? He seeketh godly offspring. Therefore take heed to your spirit, that none deal treacherously with the wife of his youth," right? Well, Yahweh Elohim of Israel says that he hates divorce, for it covers one garment with violence, saith Yah of hosts. Therefore take heed to your spirit, that ye do not deal treacherously. And yes, this is true. But now we're living in a different day. If you look at verse 14, he was talking to the men. He said, "You have dealt treacherously with the wife of your youth." But if you look today, it's not the men who are engaging in divorce. Most of the time, it's initiated by the woman. So what I need is some balance. But what you got something to say about that, brother?
Yeah, so when it talk about the woman, where does it say so men? We're talking about the men don't deal treacherous. What verse was that?
That was verse 15.
So what I'm seeing is verse 15. What book in
Malachi 2.
Okay, so what I'm seeing is when it's talking about treacherously, with the man is just saying, hey, don't deal treacherously with the wife. But in this Jeremiah 3 and 20, what is showing is the action in a wife departing from her husband is the treachery. Because in reality,
Exactly.
in Israel, the only circumstances a woman can actually really divorce a husband is through some type of counsel. If he's not doing feeding her, clothing her, and doing duty in marriage, then she can go outside and pursue a bill that way. You know, if
Yeah,
you're not really taking care of it, she might be able to do that. It's not easy because you belong to that man. You know, because up in reality, it's that man's responsibility to govern that marriage, how that marriage gonna go. But right here, to take it upon yourself to depart from your husband, that's that's against what the Most High already said, because the Most High told the woman that once you get married, this is the person that's gonna govern over you. So for you to go against and leave him, you not you're not trying to offend him or leave him. That's a disobeying the Most High. Who was that woman in the scriptures who had the mean husband? Who had that mean husband, the wicked
Nabal.
husband?
Yeah,
Exactly. Her righteousness was in abiding and staying to that. Now, no, it's not the most ideal situation, but in a dire situation where she's been abused, the Most High is righteous. She could get out of that situation if it's an abusive type situation. But the fact that they was married and she belonged to him, the Most High blessed her for pushing through that. She did what she was supposed to do. But I
exactly.
just see in terms of dealing with treacherously is these two different aspects in terms of a wife, a helpmate, and a master, a husband, on how they deal with that. And one thing is much more imperative to women that you be more circumspect on who you choose to submit yourself to, because that's who's gonna be over you. But just with that responsibility, the Most High says to the men, to the masters, you know, do righteously, don't deal treacherously, do the right thing. So we both got our parts to play.
Exactly. And I want to go to Deuteronomy 22 and 14. I'm going to verse 13. And if a man take a wife and go into her and hate her and give occasion to speak against her and bring up an evil name upon her and say, I took this woman, and when I came to her, I found her not a maid, then shall the father of the damsel and her mother take and bring forth the tokens of damsel virginity unto the elders of the city of the gate. And the damsel's father shall say to the elders, I gave my daughter unto this man to wife, and he hated her. And lo, he hath given occasion to speech against her, saying, I found not thy daughter a maid, and yet these are his the tokens of my daughter's virginity. And they shall spread the cloth before the elders of the city. And the elders of that city shall take that man and chastise him. And they shall immerse him with 100 shekels of silver and give them to the father of the damsel, because he hath brought up an evil name upon the virgin of Israel. And she shall be his wife, and he may not put her away all his days. But right here, we're seeing two men. It wasn't up to her when it came to that divorce. It wasn't up to her. It was that man came to that woman's father and presented his evidence, presented his argument to the father, and the father, these men handled it. It wasn't, she didn't go and file a divorce over there and with the state, with a state marriage license. And that's another thing. There's no teacher. Well, let me bridle my mouth, because Brother Benjamin, you probably know better than me. But if they do teach it, it's rare. What they teach, don't get a state license marriage. That's putting the state over the marriage and not Yahweh over the marriage, to allow this type of wickedness. But is it true though, Brother Benjamin, does anyone ever teach that the state license is something not to get when dealing with marriage?
I know one class who,
Mm-hmm.
after a council of me explaining how it actually goes against the commandments, because a man is supposed to be over his marriage, not the state. And people don't understand the reasoning behind the state license, what what the powers you get a state, you know,
Mhm.
and how you can actually legally, legitimately get married without going through the state. But I was explaining to one class, like, why I wouldn't do it, and how it goes against the law.
Mhm.
Because the first commandment is, thou shalt not have any other Elohims or put anybody above the Most High. And to marry the state, you giving the state more authority over your marriage. I know brothers who couldn't get a divorce from their wife because they didn't have the $200.
Exactly.
Now that's
Exactly.
their
Oh,
fault.
money said?
That's their fault
Yeah.
because they are the ones who submitted that authority over their marriage to the state. And
Mhm.
according to the scriptures of the Most High, commanded them to divorce divorce their wife because they found uncleanliness in their wife. They
Exactly.
couldn't obey the Most High's word. They couldn't obey His voice because
Mhm.
they submitted their authority over their marriage to the state over
And
a
they,
financial reason. And the state can, even if you go through the state can say, you know what, we want y'all to stay married for 6 months. Go to counseling. And you
yeah,
ain't got no choice.
yeah. We want
They
y'all
don't.
to. We want to keep this going. We want y'all to keep paying y'all lawyers every time y'all show up, thousands of dollars. So we gonna drag this on because we know y'all got money, and we know y'all fighting, and we know y'all both want to get a lawyer. So we both know that this money gonna keep flowing. So we're gonna keep
Exactly.
y'all married. It's not about doing the right thing in these
What's
courts.
what's gonna bring in the most money? So this same class, two years later, the same class about 2 years later, I guess when one of the teachers found out it was gonna be in their best interest, all of a sudden they start teaching it. All of a sudden they start teaching, oh well, um, you shouldn't go through the state and you could do it like this because that's I guess that's what one of the teachers about to do.
Yeah, yeah. And like I said, but that's only one of so many different teachers because people are still going through the state with a lot of these classes. I would say, and I will venture to say all of them, because you don't hear them talking against it, and they're doing this because they're living in fairyland. They don't really know the situation of what's going on in captivity and what's going on with these different things that these people are signing, um, pledging, making a covenant with the state. You but
Ain't there a scripture against making these covenants and agreements?
yeah, it talks about that in the book of Proverbs, talking about striking your hand, making a pledge, and things of that nature. It talks against it, but people don't understand the importance of when you sign on a dotted line, when you have a contract, how important the contract is to look over and get an understanding of. They just say, well, if you're going to get married, they tell people in their class they're going to get married, go down to the state, sign their contract, do that, believe it. If they are in the class, they're going to say, listen, we want to get married. We want you to marry us. So what do we do? And what most of them say, go down and get a married, then I'll marry you. Go down, sign their contract. And they're in error, but they will never see it. I hope they do see it. I won't say never. I hope one day they do see it. But I only have a couple more scriptures left. If anybody want to come in, the link is in the chat. I have two more scriptures to go to. The first one is the Proverbs, the 30th chapter. And there's many of these, but I just want to pick one. Proverbs chapter 30. And it says in verse 17, the eye that mocks his father and scorns obedience to his mother, the ravens of the valley will pluck it out, and the young eagles will eat it. So even if we have people who steal or disallow fathers from seeing their children, The eye that mocks the father, oh, he was a deadbeat, he was a low life, he was this. Don't have the children get in the habit of talking down on their father because you have alienated them. Or he was a low life. He was a scumbag. It happens every day. I want to go to the book of Ecclesiastes to end it off. And I have actually two more to end it off. And these scriptures are very important to me. In Ecclesiastes 12. And in verse 13, it says, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear Elohim and keep his commandments, for this is man's all. For Elohim will bring every work into judgment, including every secret thing, whether good or evil. Let me read it in the King James. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear Elohim and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For Elohim shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. The whole duty of the man is to keep the Almighty's commandments, live in the Almighty's ways. We're going to always have a broken nuclear family if we do not live in the Almighty's ways, as we pointed out here, where the father and the husband has the authority, where it's not an environment of independent women. That is not keeping the commandments to claim you are independent from your people, from your father. I'm independent from having. No, it's your father who is the one that makes those decisions, as it states in Numbers 30, where it talks about that man making the decisions for you. But if you're independent and independent-minded, you don't want a man making no decisions for you, which is totally against the commandments. Your father made those decisions for you, even when you had, but people hate fatherhood. But I'm going to go to one more verse. But I just want to reiterate the different things that we went through on here. We went to Malachi 4, where we talked about how Elijah has to go back from the fathers back to the children to the fathers. Elijah is going to make that happen, because right now it's not happening in our community. So it has to be a miracle. It has to be this Elijah who was taken up that has to come back and bring the nuclear family back together. I talked about in Exodus 22 how the father was the one that spoke with the potential husband and gave the permission to a man to marry his daughter. The daughter did not have any say so if the father disallowed it. And I also went to Numbers 30, where it says that a wife and a daughter, if they said something in his house, it was disallowed, because he was the final authority, even between them and the Creator. And when they made a vow to the Almighty, that man was the authority to disannul a vow they even made to the Creator, something that they made their mind up about what they were going to do for the Creator. That man can say, no, I disallow this vow, regardless of what it is. But this is not for someone against the nuclear family, someone who says, we don't need no man. I went to Malachi 1 and 6, where it talks about, if you be a father, where is my honor? Because they don't have honor for fatherhood. I also went to Micah, where it says that these people, the son dishonored the father, and the son-in-law, the daughter disrespect her mother. All this in Micah is just talking about the coming of Christ, because Christ said he was going to bring the nuclear family down. with each one disregarding and disrespecting one another. I went to the book of Esther, where the queen herself disrespected the king. And all of the king's advisors, all the men agreed that we cannot have an example of a woman disrespecting the king, because that will have a ripple effect on the whole community. And the nuclear family of that community will be destroyed, because the women will hold contempt for their husband, will fight against their husband. And they don't need that. I went where it talked about wife treacherously departing from her husband in Jeremiah 3:20, and spoke on no fault divorce, and showed, and you can easily see this, that over 70% of divorces are started by the woman, and how the Almighty hate putting away. And to treacherously depart is not to do it the right way, not to bring the father, because the father to the husband, they're the ones that are going to choose if you get a divorce. But that woman took it upon herself to treacherously depart from her husband. And I want to go to Jeremiah 9 to end it off, if no one else wants to come in.
Real quick on that part you just said.
Yep.
See, another thing about not going through the state is that it just occurred to me after you said that, is a woman is more difficult for a woman to leave once you actually do it through the Most High, because it's gonna depend on for that woman to be considered divorce, she will need a bill. She will need a bill, and the only person who can get that bill to her is a husband. She can't make that bill herself. She gotta be, disallowed. She gotta be, removed from that marriage from the husband. And with that, it's the man who's less likely to make those impulsive emotional decisions. You know what I'm saying? Men don't put no woman out the house because they get upset or anything like that. So that's another point. That's another point on that. And also, I'm recall it in the past where the Most High said, when he took us out of a land, it's in Jeremiah, it's in Exodus 23, verse 32. He also told us, when he took us out of one land, he told us, don't make no covenant with them or they Elohims, or we go be cursed. We go find ourselves caught in snares. And that's what's going on today. We make these agreements. We sign these tickets. We think we're doing the right thing, but it's actually putting us into a trap. It's actually putting us into a trap. And the Most High warned us and told us about this stuff. And we listening to, the governments versus the Most High and what he said. And it's putting us in worse situations. But go ahead, brother.
Yes, sir. And I think it's just ignorance. They are not, they do not know what they're doing when they sign. If you sign a contract of death, you obviously don't know what's going on, but that takes you not having any prudence and being prudent in your way. Because like I said, the Proverbs talks about striking hands and making deals and signing covenants and, obligating yourself. You have to have a level of prudence to look at what you're doing. And when you look at that state contract, it has the state over your marriage, the state over your kids, and what happens to your kids. And that's why the kids don't even go with the father the vast majority of time. And Brother Donald, you can come up if you want to. The link is there. If not, that's not the subject for today. But if you want to come up, you can. So you are 1000% correct about that. We do not make any covenants with the state. And then we're dealing with our marriage because it's going to destroy it. And that's what happens most of the time. It's because the state is going to make sure there's going to be an argument. There's going to be a fight. There's going to be contention during the divorce. They almost guarantee it. Why? Because it's about making money. The government gets a cut of alimony. They get a cut of child support. So they want you to get a state license because you have signed something that said that they can put any amount of money on that husband or wife, have them fighting amongst each other, and have you dragged back into court. They won't even finalize a marriage for over a year just to make you keep paying a lawyer. It is a bad situation when we make these decisions, but the fact is most teachers are not teaching that because they're ignorant and they're in error. And we hope one day they do find out. And I want to go to the book of Jeremiah 9. And this is one of my last comments. It's my last scripture unless someone wants to come and ask a question of such. But I'll go to Jeremiah. Let me see. Chapter 9. And what does it say? In verse 24 to end it off. I'm going to start at verse 23. Thus saith Yahweh, let not the wise man glory in his wisdom, neither let the mighty man glory in his might. Let not the rich man glory in his riches, but let him that glorieth glory in this, that he understandeth and knoweth me, that I am Yahweh, which exercise loving kindness, judgment, and righteousness in the earth. For in these things I delight, saith Yahweh. And the reason I chose this to end it off, because we're on here not for our glory, but that we know Yah. And we want to magnify his righteousness, his loving kindness, his judgment, which says that that man should bear rule in his household, and his righteousness in the earth. We're not here to say, oh, I'm so wise. Let not the wise man glory in it. Oh, I know all these scriptures, I can put them together. No, because what we really need is the Almighty's righteousness right now. Because the nuclear family is in so much destruction that we don't need a wise man, somebody glorying in their wisdom. Oh, I'm all this, and I'm prideful and arrogant and uplifted. No, we need to bring this word out that we understand how the Almighty said we should live, how the Almighty said that we should conduct ourselves, how the Almighty kept the nuclear family together with his loving kindness, his judgment, and his righteousness. But with that, brother Benjamin, you got anything else to say before we close it up?
No, that's it. Close it up.
Well, praise ye Yah on the Sabbath day. Hallelujah. Praise Yah.